Well, good morning. It is February the 24th, 2025, and straight from the highly caffeinated studio, this is According to Willie B., and I, Will Bryce, am your host for the next half hour. So, I've got a really cool episode that I'm really excited to tell you guys about today. I've looked forward to this episode all week long. This Mr.Will goes to Washington. But before we dive off into that, I would be remiss, my favorite word, if I didn't mention our business shout out of the week. And this one goes all the way back over into Lone Star State again, and it is Curbo Construction and Developing. CURBOW. Their number is 936-585-1848, and ask for Hank Curbo. Now, if you go on Facebook and check out the pictures of stuff that they've done, it looks pretty much like anything that's lumber or concrete related, those guys can do it. And I have it on good authority that they're really great to work with, and you won't be disappointed. And so they are our business shout out of the week. I realize they're all the way over in Texas, but if you're in Texas and you need something along those construction lines, give Hank a call and tell him I sent you. Okay, let's dive off into Mr. Will Goes to Washington. Now, let me give you a little bit of backstory before I start. So this started out as one of my favorite road trips, or favorite kind of road trips. And you're like, well, what kind of road trip is that? It's one where you don't plan anything. You don't book hotel rooms. You don't anything. Now, I know some of you are thinking, no, that would drive me crazy. And to some people it does. And it's not for the faint of heart, because trust me, we have taken these road trips where we didn't plan anything, and there just happened to be something going on in the town we were in, and there was no hotel rooms within multiple miles, and you wind up and sleep in the car. So you've got to have a spouse with a really good sense of humor or a whole lot of patience that would, put up with something like that. But that's my favorite kind of road trip, because I want to explore. And by doing this, you can explore more towns and more area, and you get a sampling of what's out there to go see. And you're going to see where I'm talking about here by the end when we talk about Fredericksburg, Virginia. Now, that was the one place that I did book a hotel room, because we had skirted through there a few weeks prior on accident, or not planned, not necessarily accident, but it wasn't planned. And we wound up in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and it was really cool. But we only had a couple of hours. I'm like, I want to come back here. So again, there's that sampling of a town, and so you make a note of it. You're like, okay, I want to come back here. I want to spend a whole day. So I booked a hotel that was downtown Fredericksburg so that we could wake up in Fredericksburg and spend the entire day. And we'll dive off into what all they have here in a few minutes. So when I started out, I knew that I wanted to drive around the Chesapeake Bay area. And the reason being is that area has just kind of intrigued me ever since I drove through there a few weeks prior. And I wanted to go really scout it out and kind of drive around with no GPS involved, just driving. Now, again, that is not for the faint of heart. But it was really cool. We got to explore a lot of the Chesapeake Bay area. And we wound up and took the Jamestown ferry, and that was really cool. Didn't even know there was a ferry down there. I just kept driving, and I'm like, well, there's a sign that says ferry. Let's go down there. That's got to take us somewhere. And sure enough, it did. And before we got there, we did make one pit stop that I'm going to go ahead and mention. And I wasn't going to, but I'm going to go ahead and back up, and I'm going to mention this. So on the way to Chesapeake Bay, that means that I'm going semi-close to Portsmouth. Now, what's in Portsmouth? Well, it's a Hard Rock Casino. But I wasn't necessarily looking for the casino. Remember what I told you is in the Hard Rock? A Yard House. And what does Yard House have? They have that Snake River Farms pork burger. I'm telling you, did I go out of my way to go get that burger? Yes, I did, and I would do it again. Anytime I find something that's really good, I'm going to go out of my way to get it when it's food involved, especially. So we went through there, we stopped, and we had the pork burger, and we were on our merry way. And we went towards Virginia Beach. And the reason that we went towards Virginia Beach was because we had skirted through there days prior or a few weeks prior. And it was really nasty weather. So we kind of diverted and went on further up. And that's how we wound up in the Fredericksburg, Virginia. So we scouted around Virginia Beach and checked it out. There was a place there called Waterman's Restaurant, and it wasn't white tablecloth, so to speak, but it was fine dining, seafood. Here we go with the coastal seafood. This one, it wasn't white tablecloth, but because it had the kind of like the dark woods on the decor on the facade on the inside, it gave you that old world ship feeling, like you were on a ship from back in the maybe the 60s or 70s. That's kind of the vibe that I got from it, and I thought that was really cool. That was something that I didn't expect, and the food was good. I had the shrimp, and my wife had scallops, and they were both very good. Would I go there again? Absolutely. The folks there at Waterman's do a great job. Now the next day, we wanted to check out a little bit more of the waterway area, and there was a really cool area that was waterfront, and it had where the Waterman's Museum is. Now again, I'm not a big museum person, but it looked cool. Maybe one day I'll check it out when I've checked everything else out. But what they did have was two things. They had the Water Street Grill. Now they had something very creative that I just absolutely, I think I could just live on them for at least a week. And they were hot honey chicken tacos. You had me at hot honey, and then now you're going to, and at taco, and now you add chicken. So you had really three elements there that just dragged me right in there. And then we also had the Godfather pizza, and it basically, if it was meat, it was on that pizza. So it was a really good lunch. My wife actually ordered the hot honey chicken tacos, and I think I kind of took over her entree. And I'm sorry, not sorry. But that is what it is, right? It's but because it's on the waterway, there were some pirate ships in port that day, and there was one in particular that almost looked like the Black Pearl. It wasn't. It was a lot of really big timber beam construction, and it was just really cool. And you actually could go walk on it and kind of explore it, and that was really cool. I didn't realize how high those things set up out of the water. So if you're afraid of heights, that's probably not something you want to embark on. But hey, you know what? It was a cool experience just to walk onto that boat. I can only imagine what it would be like to actually sail on that boat, or I guess ship, depending on how you want to look at it. So we continued. We left there. We continued to follow the waterway, and like I said, no map. And we were just taking this road, and we were just kind of using our sense of direction. Well, we know we want to go toward the north, and we want to go toward this way. And we wound up going down a road, and it looked like it was headed to the exact middle of nowhere. And it basically did. But we finally saw a sign that said ferry. I'm like, okay, that's taking us back to water. And if we get on the water on a ferry, we'll be able to cross over to somewhere else, maybe, and get back on the route of we wanted to go. Because somewhere along the line, we left Chesapeake Bay, and we were just on this random road. We crossed over on the Jamestown, Scotland ferry. When I tell you after we got off the ferry that we left the middle of nowhere and we came to the capital of nowhere. So we wound up and turned around and made a drive back because that wasn't getting us anywhere where we wanted to go. What made this next day a turn of events was why one of the number one reasons why I like road trips that are unplanned. So we drove through a town, and I actually made sure that I'm going to pronounce this one correctly, but it's called Occoquan. And it's Occoquan, just for those that aren't familiar. So Occoquan was this really small town that was founded back in the 1700s, and I believe it was back in 1805 it was actually the mail stage route for where the mail went through. And so the town has a ton of history. So if you're a history buff and you want to check out a town that has a lot of history, and I think they actually had won like the number one tourist destination in Prince William County. There's a lot of history, and so they had a lot of shops, boutique shops, food shops, you name it, antiques. A lot of specialty shops. You could spend a day there. I would say you could easily spend a day in Occoquan. And there was a little cafe there called the Secret Garden Cafe. And when I say secret, it was down an alley to get to the what I would call the side door. But hey, it's in the south, so it can qualify for the front door. Why not? But it was really cool. It was good food, and that was a neat dining experience. Because we were literally in this, I would call it semi-colonial style town with all the houses, and it had a really neat vibe to it. And so we kind of added that to our list of, when we go back through that area again, that might be a town that we want to spend a few more hours in. I think we were only in Occoquan probably a couple hours. And this is where the trip turns strange. So, like I said, I knew that I wanted to go to Fredericksburg, Virginia. But we continued on our path through Newport and Newport News, Jamestown, a lot of those small towns through there. Before you knew it, because I'm not really following a map, we find ourselves in Washington, D.C. Don't ask me how. It takes skill to do that. But we found ourselves in Washington, D.C. And we had most of the day still ahead of us. But we didn't have enough time to really explore each monument, because Washington, D.C. has a lot. You could spend a weekend in Washington, D.C. And who knew? Washington, D.C. was not one of those places that ever really just hit my radar of I got to go there. But it is definitely a place that I want to go back. And we got on this hop on, hop off tour bus. Now, understand, I grabbed my trusty phone and Googled where to catch this bus, and it said you catch it in front of the train station. Zip right over my head. I had no clue of where I was. I'd never been to Washington, D.C. I just knew I was at a train station. And some of you may already pick up where this is going. So we get on this hop on, hop off tour. We'd never got off. We just stayed on the bus, rode through Washington, D.C., and just looked at all the monuments and etc. through the windows of the bus. And it wasn't bad. It was really neat. It was a great experience. And we said we definitely want to come back and do that tour and then hop off in the different places and really get a close-up experience with each monument. Well, as we were ending our day, both of us are getting hungry, and it's the tour bus, they were about 30 minutes from ending their day. And she said that if we just stay on there, that we will be taken right back to that train station. The stop right before there, we went down a street in downtown Washington, D.C., and it was called Restaurant Row. And I mean, it had more restaurants than I've ever seen in one spot. And so I asked the bus driver, I said, when she got back to the train station, I said, how do we get back over to that street with the restaurants? So she gave me a quick on foot direction of how to get back over there. So before we decided to head off in that direction, we said, well, let's look and see what we want to eat. And then that way we can just put that in and walk straight to that restaurant and not walk all over Washington, D.C. So we made the obligatory restroom stop inside the train station. I still have no clue where I'm at. When we walked into the train station, the wife goes immediately to the restroom, and I stop in the middle. And I want you to picture this. I want to paint you a mental picture of what's about to happen. I am standing in the middle of the Amtrak train station in Washington, D.C., and it does not dawn on me where I'm at until that moment. When I saw the clocks and the arches, because I'd seen the inside of that train station in movies. And it was at that moment that I just stood in awe in the middle of that train station with people whizzing by. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the train station. And I literally just froze. When my wife comes back to find me, she said, are you okay? And I said, do you realize that we are in the train station? We are in the train station in Washington, D.C., the train station. This has been in movies. She goes, yes, I know. And so she had a good moment of laughter at my expense. And I guess I did too later on. But at the moment, it was just, and this is what I try to tell you about traveling. There are so many things in this world that can leave our jaws drop to the floor when we go experience them in person. You can watch it on TV. You can watch YouTube videos. You can listen to a podcast that talks about traveling. But until you go and you stand in that moment yourself, then you have not experienced that. And there are so many more experiences like that, that's what I'm looking for. It's almost like I'm looking for my next meal experience, only I'm looking for my next vacation experience, because they rank up there at the same level. So, yes, it was funny, because now the joke is my wife took me to the train station. Metaphor has now been made full circle. You're welcome. So, the restaurant that we chose, the humor didn't end there. We decided on Italian food. Italian food is not one of my favorites. Look, if you get outside of spaghetti, you lost me. Maybe chicken parmesan. Is about as off the weird side that I'm going to go. And there's a lot of different dishes in Italian food that just people just go gaga over. Not my thing. There's a lot of cheeses that I don't like, is usually one of the main reasons. But that's my own weird story. So we agreed to get the chicken parmesan. The waiter told us, after we're already seated, that it was family-style dining, meaning that they're going to bring out one entree, and it's enough to feed, per his words, 3 to 4 people. Now, when I tell you that they brought that chicken parmesan out on what seemed to be a hubcap off of 57 Buick, I'd never seen a platter for one table of that size. Now, I can eat with the best of them. I can eat my share. I kid you not. But, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, I did my best duty on to knock as much as, and it didn't look like we had even made a dent in that platter. It looked like it had been nibbled on by birds. And so we asked our server, I said, look, we're traveling. we could take this with us and get it back to the hotel room because it's getting later in the day. But we've already eaten tonight. It's not like we're going to eat it for breakfast tomorrow. What recommendation do you have? He said, if you care to, he said, we can package this up. We get this a lot because of our serving size. We can package it up. There's a homeless shelter 2 streets over. We will take a runner and have them take it over to the homeless shelter. That blew me away. That was probably a wow experience in a whole different direction. Here this is, and they do this on a daily basis. And the name of the restaurant is called Carmine's. And if you get a chance to go there and eat, it's in Washington, D.C. It's downtown on Restaurant Row. It's called Carmine's. It's easy to find on the internet. And the food is absolutely phenomenal, hands down. Probably some of the best chicken parmesan I've ever had. But to sit there and have a plan B of that they take that to a homeless shelter, that's just, ladies and gentlemen, that's just taking service to a whole new level, in my opinion. And so I was really blown away, and that left a memorable mark in my little brain that will probably never go away. Now, don't misunderstand me. There are things in my brain that do go away, but that one's probably stuck in there for a while. But Carmine's is definitely their service. Everything from the front door to the back door was absolutely phenomenal. If you're ever in Washington, D.C., make sure you check out Carmine's. And there's a lot of different restaurants on that restaurant row, and a lot of independents. And I think that you could spend a week there and still not eat at every restaurant. So that we went ahead and stayed the night in Washington, D.C., and we got up the next morning and started driving. We didn't want to try to finagle our way through downtown and try to find something for breakfast, so we kind of headed out of town, and we wound up in a little town called Alexandria. And we found a mom and pop, and it was called Bob and Edith's Diner. Now, they've been in business since 1969. Now, I don't know what it is with their food portion sizes in and around Washington, D.C., but it's just insanity, because I ordered the pancakes. Again, looked like the hubcaps off a 57 Buick. They were just massive. But they were really good. They were like a home recipe. Now they may use a commercial mix, but they've got to be doing something to it if they are, because it tasted like a homemade. It had the texture of a homemade pancake. So my hat is off to them. I guess that's why they've been in business since 1969. So we left there after breakfast, and we headed on into Fredericksburg. Now, I'm going to make a little side note for you here. Now, in Texas, there, and I know I seem to be doing this a lot, but bear with me on this one. Give me this one. In Texas, there's a town called Fredericksburg. And what is unique about that town is that you could spend an entire weekend there going through all the shops. And there's anything from an old five and dime to a boutique to different jam and jelly stores, you name it. Stores selling leather. I mean, you just can't imagine any store and it not be there. And that's what the attraction is for that town, and has been for many, many years. So you've got Fredericksburg in Texas, that's what they are. Well, guess what? Fredericksburg in Virginia is almost identical to the same thing. Now, Fredericksburg is a German word. So I'm thinking, and I could be wrong, I have been before, but I'm thinking that Fredericksburg in German must mean bring us your money and we'll give you a t-shirt. I could be wrong, but I think that could be a possibility. But both towns are really unique, and you can spend a whole weekend there. And Fredericksburg, Virginia was no different. There was a chocolate shop there. I believe the shop was called Favor, Favor. Really good high end chocolates, and they had a store there that had olive oils and vinegars, etc. Those are the kind of stores that I typically like to go into. Now, my wife, she likes to go into the little boutiques and the gifts and the little, all those kind of things. And I will stand patiently while she looks through that, as she does when I shop for food. So that's really kind of the attraction for me to Fredericksburg. But let's not short sell Fredericksburg, Virginia, because there is a lot of history that dates way back into the 1700s in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And there's some different tours there. You can take one that actually takes you on a Model A truck and takes you around town. There's a couple places where there's cannonballs inside on in the actual facade of the building. So it's just so much history there. You could just literally spend the entire weekend and looking through the different shops and exploring the history. I'm not a big history buff, but that was really cool. I thought, cannonball. I mean, that's, imagine if that wall could talk, the stories it would tell. So as we're winding up this trip, we've spent our entire day in Fredericksburg and absolutely enjoyed it. I think we've pretty much covered that town now. There's not a need to go back for a little while. But we really wanted something really good for dinner. And they happened to have a white tablecloth. And I said, I could really go for a good white tablecloth restaurant. Now, this restaurant is called Fahrenheit 132. Look it up. When I tell you, and I've said this before, when I go into a white tablecloth restaurant, right, I already expect a wow experience. I mean, if you give me anything less than that, then we just didn't meet eye to eye. But for a white tablecloth to bring it an extra level, the way Fahrenheit 132 was impressive beyond measure, and it's an independent. Their creativity, their attention to detail is down to the water glass on the table has to be set in a certain place when they set the table. It was absolutely amazing to just sit back and take it all in and watch the staff as one well-oiled machine. I don't know who the chef is there, and I hope one day I get to go back that I do have time to check in and maybe meet with the chef and kind of get an interview with him, because it's just like the restaurant over in Louisiana called Cala that I've told you about. Same type of service, same type of experience. They took the wow experience in a white tablecloth and they took it up just one more notch. And to do that is just absolutely impressive. And, I have no doubt that it wouldn't matter what day of the week you went in there, the consistency that you would get is unmatched. And you've got to really bring it to make me want to sell your restaurant that hard. To tell people that, hey, I realize it's not going to be cheap, but for what you're going to get an experience that is elevated far and above anything that you've ever experienced. And if you go there and you have any other experience other than what I just described, you let me know. I'd like to know, because I just really don't feel like that you would. I feel like that I'm selling this restaurant 100% to who they are. Then that was pretty much wound up the trip, other than the next morning. I'll give you one more little bit of humor here. Before we headed back to the North Carolina state, we had to have breakfast before getting on the road. And there was a restaurant there, a small little independent diner called the Battlefield Breakfast. When I tell you that I thought the pancakes in Washington, D.C. at Bob and Edith's were big. I could have literally used this pancake for a blanket. I've never seen a pancake that large. It covered most of the table. And it was good. That's the thing, is like you would think, okay, so you made a great big pancake, but it was really good. If I compared the one at Battlefield to the one at Bob and Edith's, hands down, I would go with Bob and Edith's. Just because there was something about that pancake batter that just really set them apart. I really feel like they're making that pancake batter in house, and it was absolutely phenomenal. But that was a multiple day road trip, and really the only thing that was planned was the one night hotel in Fredericksburg. But like I said, there was so many moments on this trip. I could actually probably go on for another half hour. I won't, but there was just so many eye-opening experiences on this trip. Especially, I need to see if I have a picture of what Will looks like in Wonderland, because that's kind of what I look like in Washington, D.C. I was definitely out of my element, and I didn't know that was possible. But that wraps up this trip. I look forward to talking to you guys again next week. Don't forget to check us out, www.accordingtowillieb.com. And yes, the www stands for Where in the World is Will. If you want to follow us on social media, I'm going to give you a suggestion. And that would be not only our website, but start looking towards YouTube. And the reason being is I'm about to start a new series called Restaurant Review. And I want to give it kind of a little bit of a plug here. This will be about a 15-minute, basically, review of a restaurant. And it will be behind the scenes, and it will be kind of done in like a television style format. And I want to cram as much information in about that restaurant in that 15 minutes as humanly possible. So your eyes and ears are going to get a treat when you tune in for that show. And I'll be keeping you up to date on that. We actually am going to start filming some of the episodes this week on location. Our online store will be up by the 1st of March, as I had promised. The link will be on the website. So as promised, our online store will be up and running on March 1st. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Don't forget to follow us on social media, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. We're out there on all of them. And until that time, don't forget to caffeinate and conquer, and have a great day. Thank you for listening.